Hey there, nerds. I'm Jimmy Palmquist, and you're not.
And I'm James with today's news. Weather report.
James,
It's
you ignorant slut.
freaking cold.
Stepped on his line. I love it. Anywho, we are here to talk about the recently released Saturday Night.
Which I was surprised. I did not go into this movie expecting anything. I am not an SNL person, but I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think this is a generational thing, big time. When I was growing up, specifically the 90s, Saturday Night Live really hit almost a second wind of being awesome again. We had Dana Carvey. Eventually, we had like Chris Rock. We had Chris Farley.
He got all the good guys.
We did David Spade. When David Spade was on the news, it was freaking awesome. Norm Macdonald, who you brought up earlier, Adam Sandler. Just the cast was so good. Once again, the 80s, we had this lull where it wasn't great. But then I do catch it from time to time now, but it was much more of a social commentary, specifically in the late 70s, early 80s when it was started. And I feel like some of that icon status wore off as we got into the present day. And it's hard because TV has changed. It's like everybody wants these short segments, which SNL is perfect for, but they're not necessarily on traditional TV. So it's a weird thing to watch with my son who didn't grow up with Saturday Night Live.
And it's a little ironic because this movie is about the beginning of SNL. Now, we did a little bit of research because when you watch it, you're like, there's no way all of this happened in the first night. Then again, I'm a theater kid and I've seen way crazier things happen on the night of the first production.
But that's what was interesting. It wasn't like, oh my God, there's no way all this happened. It's like, could this have possibly happened?
Yes.
So I've read several Saturday Night Live books and they're all fascinating. What we found out was this movie, directed by Jason Reitman, was taken basically the first 5 years of the original cast. Bill Murray did come in, Chevy Chase did go out, but basically that time frame and compressed it into opening night. Now that's not to say Bill Murray or his characters in this movie, he's not. But little things like the fight between John Belushi and Chevy Chase, Garrett Morris going on about what was his role on the show, Jane Curtin and some of her drama and actually helping out Garrett Morris. A lot of little things in that did not happen opening night, but did happen across the span of the show.
Yes, and the show, you're immediately introduced to Lorne Michaels, who wants to advocate that this show is not a variety show. It's not. I've already forgotten so many of those classic 70s variety shows, but it's not one of those.
Sonny and Cher, that's a big one.
There we go.
The Brady
But
Bunch.
he doesn't know what it is. And my favorite joke in the movie, Lorne, what is this show? You'll see in 80 minutes.
And what's great is the one who keeps asking him at this point is Dick Ebersol, the character. Dick Ebersol went on to actually produce the show in the 80s when we saw this huge drop off and they basically let Lorne go. Lorne, I think, in fuzzy details, left on his own because he wasn't getting the creative rights that he wanted. So Dick Ebersol came in and screwed it up. But the fact that Dick was a part of the show and wanting to get it off the ground was huge.
Absolutely. And what has become so ironic about SNL in the modern era is that it's become such a household name that it is effectively now what those variety shows like Sonny and Cher were back in the 70s. Not in the same fashion, but in the same way that it's like, if I say Saturday Night Live, there's a good chance anybody on the street is going to know that's a show that exists on the air about a bunch of different comedic skits.
And what's funny is watching Lorne Michaels navigate shark-infested waters of talent, set design, lighting, executives. It's unbelievable. But we see little glimpses of here of things that eventually make it on the show. Like Chevy Chase has a throwaway line, Candygram, Land Shark. And it's like, oh my God, that's hilarious. I love that segment. We have Dan Aykroyd constantly referring to different segments of things that were going to go on. John Belushi absolutely hating the bee costume that he's being put into. But what's hilarious is the bee costume is what eventually led to the Blues Brothers, which is one of his most favorite things. So these little tie-ins were great. But we also learned things that I don't think a lot of people know were associated with Saturday Night Live, especially modern day. But if you've read the books, you may have. Jim Henson
Yes, yes.
Jim Henson and Frank Oz brought the Muppets to Saturday Night Live.
They tied Big Bird up with a noose.
Over time, they both amicably understood that this was not a good partnership, so they separated. But the Muppets were an original part of Saturday Night Live. Also, Andy Kaufman has one of the most iconic sketches of all time where he's singing Mighty Mouse. He was a part of Saturday Night Live and eventually got voted off because of his antics off screen, but he was there. He was a part of it. Ironically, in this movie, the actor played both Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson.
Which was a little jarring because I know, and you know, Jim Carrey for playing Kaufman, which is one of the most eerie portrayals I have yet to see, but I'm well aware of. And you have like this tall, lanky dude, and it's like, that's not Kaufman.
He's a little taller than Kaufman.
That's not Kaufman. But one of my favorite Jim Henson jokes in it is like, so what did you think of the papers? There were no pages. Fair criticism.
And it was interesting to see also Jim Henson was trying to bridge this gap of the Muppets are for kids. And he's like, no. I truly believe the Muppets can entertain adults as well. And we see this later on with like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, even some of his The Muppet Show, which was awesome. Unfortunately, he died way too soon, so we didn't get to see all of his ideas. But other things that I'm not sure time-wise, like Billy Crystal was on this as far as being an opening night. I don't think that happened. It may well have, but I don't think that happened. I know he was a cast member later on. You look marvelous. But it was interesting to see that he kept going back and forth with another comedian. Oh, I can do my act in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes. And then Lauren comes in and is like, can you get it down to 2? And he's like, oh, I don't think so. And the female comedian's like, I can. So she got on theoretically. Just those little things going on. And then one of the best cameos, guest spots, whatever, J.K. Simmons.
Oh my God.
As Milton Berle.
Every time J.K. Simmons shows up on screen, I feel like a child being like, oh, I love that guy. Same also with Willem Dafoe showing up. That was another like, oh, I love that guy. Two amazing actors. But J.K. Simmons, he plays a character who, not a character, he plays a dude. I can't remember his name.
Milton Berle.
Milton Berle, who is
renowned as being a very famous TV personality and comedian.
And one of my favorite jokes that, like during his introduction, it's like, well, your reputation precedes you, sir, by about 11 inches. And it's like,
and this is a common myth, whatever, in Hollywood, that he did have a big penis. And they definitely played it out. In one part, pulling the Dirk Diggler, like whipping it out, like, okay. And what's interesting is the Chevy Chase that most people know nowadays being a 100% dick.
Yeah, like crotchety old dude.
It's like they replaced that with a young Chevy Chase who's a little naive but arrogant with Milton Berle, who's being a huge dick, and put Chevy Chase in his place, and it was hilarious to see.
Yeah, and I would just like to say that everybody who played one of the comedians, like, did it so well. Chevy Chase, most people don't think this, but is a hard character to play because of the way he like fires off jokes and does not give a damn. The kid who played Chevy Chase did so well, like really, really well.
We also got to see a little more of the not necessarily outstanding cast or more memorable cast. I would even put Jane Curtin when she was on, not necessarily the most well-known on the cast. Lorraine Newman, definitely not very well-known. And then one of the points that they bring up, Garrett Morris, not well-known at all. And basically he says it, I was used as a slave, I was used as a butler, I was used as a handyman, just basically in the shadows, but they showcase his abilities, like he could sing, and it was hilarious.
Oh,
Kill Whitey,
my God.
Hilarious, but he was very talented, and that's some of the things that we don't necessarily see from him on SNL.
Done an opera. That was a great joke.
But then to see how this all ties in, and we literally are on edge. It reminded me when I saw Miracle. It's like, I know the results of Miracle. I get it. I know what happened. USA defeats Russia in the semifinals to make it to the finals. I know Saturday Night Live is going to make it to the air. I get it. It's going to happen. But it's still, I'm like, oh my God, are they going to pull this off? I don't know. I think they're going to do a Carson rerun. I don't think they're going to make it. Oh my God.
And it's weird as someone who doesn't know the full history of SNL, but knows it's had rough patches. I wouldn't have been surprised if the first night they tried to go to air, it just didn't happen, and that it wouldn't be until next week. So to have Willem Dafoe finally go live, it's like, well, hot damn.
To me, this was a great summation of what Saturday Night Live was in the beginning, basically 75 to 80, rough dates. But I really think this epitomized what it was and what it was going to be, and that you had kids who had no idea what they were going to do, what they were doing, a career, all of a sudden being given power, money, and time, and they made it on television.
Absolutely.
And the things that then came from that with the movies and the media and all that was just huge. It's very similar to SCTV up in Canada. It was huge. It was iconic, and it really changed the way television was made, because they were talking about the variety shows nonstop, and there's no way this thing's going to make it. And obviously, we're about to have the 50th anniversary of the show with as many people coming back as they can. And this was the beginning.
Absolutely. It is an incredible movie that's not just about the comedians who you saw on your TV screen at the time. It's about the people who put time and effort into it. The bricklaying guy who's making a brick wall. Great joke. But then it also sets up like this dude keeps laying the brick wall even when it's like everybody's like, there's no hope. And then they all come in to help him. You have the light guy who, I can't remember what happened to the first one. Didn't he just...
He quit.
Oh, right, he quit. And then you have Lorne go on to one of the variety shows that's also going live currently. And he goes up to one of the light people, and he's like, can you do lights? We need you to do lights. The pay's abysmal. You get... No, you don't get vacations. Timing is abysmal.
You work weekends.
You work weekends. You get no vacations. And then there's like hours are abysmal, something like that. He's like, well, what about the pay? That's the worst part. He's like, I'm in, because he leaves the jackass who was like berating him at the lights he was already at. And it's all about just everything that went towards it, not just, the people being there to be on set.
And we forgot probably one of the big points is the only real talent that was on that episode was George Carlin, a well-known comedian at the time, and he couldn't fathom why he was there. He was going to fire his agent because he couldn't believe he was going to put in with this crap and dealing with these amateurs. And it really epitomized what, not just the executives, but what other talent saw the show was going to be. Crap.
Yeah. It really conveys that feeling of, holy shit, is this actually going to go to air tonight? Are you going to make it? And it just does it so well with the way the writing fits together, and the music also really, really did wonders for the tension you feel. Like it's basically just improvised jazz, but there's like these moments where it's needs more cowbell, but you have like a drum beat that's just like hidden, or like a single snare, and you're like, thanks, I feel so much anxiety right now.
So if you have any interest in basically modern comedy, because this is where a lot of it came from, a lot of the media, a lot of the movies, a lot of the actors that came from Saturday Night Live and have now made bigger and better things, check out this movie, because it is really entertaining. It gives you a glimpse into that world, and you'll be surprised at all the guest appearances, both actors you know, but also characters that you may or may not know. It was really good. Highly recommend.
Absolutely.